Both companies accusing each other for not being fair to artists. I already heard the word going around in London of people going like, "Oh, I'm gonna sign to Sony. I'm gonna sign to Warner. As soon as I'm out, I'm switching." TikTok has the argument that they don't need Universal.
What if all of these major labels tried to take their music down and really stand up to TikTok?
I call out Universal.
We're going to be doing something a little bit different to our usual episodes this week, and we're going to be talking about the TikTok versus Universal Music Group conflict that's going on at the moment. I'm going to be speaking to Marwen Tlilli, who has over a decade's experience working in the music industry and has worked with some of the biggest record labels in the world, including Atlantic Records here in the UK and Armada Music over in the Netherlands, where he famously signed Lost Frequencies, who later came out with the smash hit Are You With Me, which has since gone 50 times platinum. We're going to be speaking with him about the A&R side of things in a future episode, but in this one, we want to talk about TikTok versus Universal since it's so relevant at the moment. So first, I want to give a little bit of context on what's going on with the conflict. So on the 31st of January, TikTok and Universal's licensing agreement came to an end, and they were stuck in negotiations and ultimately didn't agree a new deal. So at the moment, as I'm sure you've probably seen, none of the Universal Music Group's artists' music is available on TikTok. Any TikToks that were made with it before is now coming up blank. And that includes artists like Taylor Swift, The Weeknd, Drake, and loads more. Universal Music Group have the biggest roster of artists in the world, so there's clearly a huge deal for TikTok. Now, both Universal and TikTok have come out with statements since they failed to agree a deal. Universal came out with an open letter to artists in which they said that ultimately TikTok is trying to build a music-based business, but without paying fair value for the music they're using, and that TikTok had attempted to bully them into accepting a deal which was worth less than the previous deal they'd agreed, despite the fact that TikTok has seen a massive growth in their user base. Now, TikTok came out with a statement of their own, which was a lot shorter, and said that Universal Music Group has put their own greed above the interests of their artists and their songwriters, and that TikTok haven't had any problems reaching agreements with other labels and publishers so far. Now, the situation is currently a stalemate. Both sides are being quite stubborn and not wanting to agree a new deal and agree to the other's demands. But ultimately, it does seem like a deal will be agreed at some point, because ultimately both sides need each other. Universal need TikTok for the amazing promotional power that TikTok has. I mean, we've seen over the last few years how many songs, even older songs from decades ago, like Murder on the Dance Floor recently and Dreams by Fleetwood Mac, we've seen how those songs can be skyrocketed in popularity by going viral on TikTok. On the other hand, TikTok need Universal because, as I mentioned, Universal has the biggest roster in the world. They own over 30% of all the music that is currently out on streaming services. And TikTok also have plans to create their own streaming service, and that obviously would not be viable without the music of Universal's roster. So as I said, both need each other, but what we're trying to dig into in this episode is who needs each other more, who needs the other one the most, and who will ultimately back down and who will win this conflict. So without further ado, here's me and Marwen Tlilli talking about that conflict and why Marwen thinks that TikTok will be the winners.
Both companies accusing each other for not being fair to artists. It's like, yeah, well, I gotta be honest, I'm more on TikTok's side because it's like, sorry Universal, but TikTok breaks artists, you know? I'm sorry, you know, TikTok brings a lot of value to new artists, and Universal doesn't. I hate to say it, you know, Universal can disappear tomorrow and Warner and Sony will fill the gaps.
That's interesting, actually, because I wanted to talk about that conflict, because I suppose the Universal, I read the open letter that Universal put out, and it was very much sort of on the side of artists and talking about like why the deal that TikTok are putting across isn't fair because they're not paying enough given how many people listen to music on TikTok. And I think the thing that I would agree with them on is that TikTok have built like this entire business that they have, and like they've got billions of users. They've built it around music. Like the whole app is about music, really.
Yes and no, because I would say it's more a video platform than a music platform.
Yeah, but music's kind of what made it what it is, because like trending audios and stuff and all the songs that have come out of TikTok.
Yes.
That's kind of, I don't know if TikTok would be what it is without music.
But would music be what it is without TikTok?
Nice twist, like that.
You know, no, but think about it. Like how many, like from all the artists that have recently broken through, how many of them come from TikTok? and TikTok changed the landscape, but at least TikTok has given a lot of new artists a platform. And if Universal wanna, I call out Universal. Lucien, you're mine. No, I'm not. He doesn't even know me. So if Universal wanna be so fair about creators getting paid, why don't they implement a royalty for writers, for songwriters? Right?
Yeah.
Better the world, start with yourself. Universal, why don't you start yourself by giving songwriters master points just in there, before you start accusing other companies of not being fair? Because let's be honest, we're not going to see an increase as creators. I'm sure if I check the statements from my clients in 2 years' time, I'm not going to see more money from TikTok or anything, so it's those things are all like, I always say it's a bit pathetic propaganda schemes, like, we really care. No, you don't care about creators and artists. You care about making shareholders rich. That's why you're gonna lay off a lot of staff. It's simple.
Yeah, essentially. I mean, I suppose one thing that's frustrating with this kind of conflict is that we'll never know the numbers, because like they're both in this standoff at the moment, because Universal said TikTok have offered too little, TikTok we've offered perfectly fair amount, and we'll never know. Like TikTok could have offered £10 for all we know.
Well, think about it. Sony, Warner, Cobalt, BMG, Merlin, which is the society of all the big independents, have all accepted the deal. Why didn't Universal accept the deal? Because let's think about it. If it was good enough for other corporate greed companies like Warner and Sony, why was it not good enough for Universal? Because again, TikTok has the argument that they don't need Universal. I'm sure that the user numbers of TikTok haven't gone down now that the UMG catalog has been removed. I'm certain that the user numbers are still the same. I don't think anyone has gone like, damn, Drake is removed. No, I'm deleting the app. I'm sure that people are still watching their TikToks in bed every day, on the toilet every day. That's why I say I think it's more a video platform.
Yeah.
And music is a big part of it. But you see
plenty of other music, isn't there, at the end of the day?
Yeah.
I mean, it's interesting. You've sided with TikTok here, but sort of this is obviously a stalemate that's going to go on. And I do think TikTok do need the music to an extent, because it's so much of TikTok is based around music. It's such a big part of it. And you have all these like Drake, the Beatles, Taylor Swift, all of these artists. I do think, obviously, right now, I agree with you. I don't think anyone's deleting TikTok because of that. But I think, I don't know, let's say this lasts for 2 years.
Yeah.
And then Instagram Reels the whole time still has all the Universal Music catalog and still has all of that. I do think after a while, it would begin to make a dent into TikTok, and like how many people, maybe not delete it, but how many people use it on a daily basis.
Well, no, because I'm going to ask you a question, because I had a conversation with someone and he said, like, we are on the same page. And he even said like this. He said, when is the last time you've seen the Beatles on the front page on TikTok?
The Beatles maybe not, but Drake, Taylor Swift.
No, but Drake
Weeknd.
too, like look at the tracks that become trends. It's often, not the Drakes and not the, and this is also the thing. If it continues 2 years, it's going to cause a massive dent for Universal. And let me tell you why. If you are an artist right now and you get a record deal offered from Sony or Universal, which one are you taking?
Oh, Sony.
Yeah, there you go. Why?
My music can be on TikTok.
Yeah, exactly. So for the Universal can't win this stalemate. And I'm sure TikTok know this as well. I'm certain they realize this.
I think you might be right, because I think it's telling that Universal's statement was like probably 700 words.
Yeah.
And TikTok's statement was like 3
very
sentences. Yeah. And Universal was, I think, we're trying to sort of appeal to artists and people who like love music and maybe don't know as much about it, or are thinking, well, this is unfair. TikTok aren't paying the artists that I love enough.
But for artists, it sucks. It sucks as an artist. If you are signed to Universal and they also plan on removing the publishing catalog, right? So imagine as a songwriter right now, You know, I already heard the word going around in London of people going like, yeah, well, let's make sure that that person isn't signed to Universal, you know, or those kind of things. Like, because it's like, yeah, well, what do you want to do? You want to, you know, spit on the biggest, cheapest music marketing platform? Let's be honest. You know, TikTok is the one platform you don't have to spend money to get a viral track.
That's true.
You know, so you're basically, you know, like, yeah, I know Universal can't win this stalemate. You know, because after all, like I said, every artist is thinking this way. You know, like, cool, I'm gonna sign to Sony. I'm gonna sign to Warner. As soon as I'm out, I'm switching. You know, same on the publishing. Yeah, they have a massive catalog, but yeah, new catalog will be created, and you know, name me one track that broke from Insta Reels.
It's a good point.
You know,
good point.
Yeah.
I mean, I think there are some tracks that there are definitely tracks that do well from Instagram Reels, but I don't think it's quite the same like cultural impact. And like, you don't really see it. You maybe see it like the artist gain followers, but you maybe don't see it like chart like you do with TikTok.
Yeah.
I think the thing that's interesting is what if Warner and Sony followed suit though? What if all of these major labels tried to take their music down and really like stand up to TikTok? Because TikTok do not. I agree with you that it's a free marketing platform to like blow these songs up, but TikTok don't really pay. They pay almost nothing for the music.
Well, Warner and Sony would need an incentive to join, right? We just talked about it. If I was the CEO of Warner right now, I'd be like, fuck them. Let's sign their artists. They're eliminating themselves, you know, like they're making it way easier for us to sign the competition now because Universal is the biggest by market cap and share, you know. Well, it's a bit hard, but Sony is one company, right? And they are obviously bigger by market cap. But, you know, the recorded music, like UMG has the biggest market share. But still, you know, a lot of artists are not happy with the fact that their music can't be uploaded to TikTok now because it's one really big platform. Look, Drake won't suffer from it. Post Malone won't suffer from it. Taylor Swift won't suffer from it. But what about all the new kids on the block? You know, the future Drakes, the future Taylors, the future, you know, like artists like that. They are now going to sign record deals to Sony and Warner. So if I was the CEO of Warner, by the way, Warner, if you're looking, you can always hire me. But if I was CEO of Warner, I'd be like, nah, let's make sure that this stalemate goes on. So, you know, the longer it goes on, the more people get released from their record deals, the more people we can sign.
Yeah, it's interesting though, because if I was CEO of Warner, I'd be thinking the same thing. But at the same time, look, there are definitely there are meetings going on between all these people at these major labels.
Oh yes, they unify very often. You know, they unified against Spotify a couple of years ago to get pay increased. You know,
you see, is that not a similar thing? Would the CEO of Warner, on the one hand, maybe be thinking, well, we could sign a load of these artists, but on the other hand, be thinking, well, if us, Universal and Sony all pull our music, then we could maybe double or triple the amount of money TikTok gives us. Is that not something they'll be thinking about?
Well, I'm sure that right now they're looking at what the impact is. You know, I'm sure they are like in real time just sitting back and sort of going like, cool, thanks Universal for this experiment, you know, because their deal's still running, you know, for they extended their deals. So they're probably sitting back and watching like who is suffering the most from this. And I know for a fact it isn't TikTok, because again, you know, like where you know, like you can compare it to an airport in sort of like TikTok is an airport and these labels are airliners. If British Airways falls away tomorrow, someone will fill the gap, right? So I think that's sort of what it is. Like TikTok is a tech company and they are based on videos, because first of all, it's not music. It's not like you do TikTok like this, you know, you don't hold the phone to your ear, you watch. So first it's video, because also a lot of content on TikTok is not even about music anymore. You know, it started as Musical.ly and around music and dancing, But I don't know, like my For You page isn't dancing anymore, you know?
Yeah, we've kind of moved past that stage, I think.
Yeah. So, you know, I think it's cool to see. It's a battle between titans, but yeah, I think, TikTok is the bigger titan. And the difference is with Spotify is like, if you pull all the music from Spotify is a music platform. They don't have anything else to fall back on. But did any creators disappear now from TikTok? You know?
Probably not. I mean, I suppose some of the artists like Taylor Swift, for example, themselves, I think through their deals have now like stopped posting on TikTok.
Well,
but they're not really the
music
creators.
content.
Sorry?
Music content, yes, but not other content. A lot of Universal artists are still posting TikToks, you know, because it's, again, such a good discovery platform, you know?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I did a post about the conflict when it was all coming out, but that's the thing, that's TikTok's argument, is that we provide all the discovery for your music in this day and age because radio isn't doing what it used to anymore. Music videos isn't doing what it used to anymore. YouTube isn't doing what it used to do anymore. That's what we're doing. Yeah. We're putting your music in front of the people that are ready to listen.
Yes, and I think that's not because TikTok is doing something amazing. I think it's because the other companies are just lacking in you know, pushing new material out there. It's very hard to be discovered on Spotify. You know, it's very hard. Like New Music Friday, 100 tracks, but how many tracks get uploaded to Spotify every week?
I actually know that 120,000.
Exactly, and then there are only 100 in New Music Friday every week, you know? Whereas on TikTok will find the right algorithm for you. Keep posting long enough in the same vein and TikTok will find you your audience, you know? As long as your content is also good, of course, you know? Yeah. But eventually, you know, we've seen it now. We've done it with another artist now, with Boy Loco, who's now gaining momentum, is signing a deal to Warner, you know, and they don't even have a Spotify page, you know.
Really?
Yeah, it just shows, like, and that shows the power of TikTok, and we said the same thing, you know, with that. We would not sign to Universal. We broke on TikTok. Imagine we break on TikTok, right? And then we signed a record deal, and where we broke is gone. It wouldn't make sense.
Crazy.
It would not make sense. So yeah, I think the stalemate is gonna be won by TikTok. But I'm curious to see. Like,
yeah, me too.